Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal your thunder. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
How far back do you want me to go?
As far back as
However you
you want
wanna-
whatever you want us to know.
Okay. I grew up in South Williamsport, like 45 minutes away from here. I played sports my whole life. Wanted to be a physical therapist, and then went to an athletic training camp as a not child, but like young adult, and decided that I'd rather that because you can still do the rehab, but also go and watch like sporting events and stuff. So then I switched my career path, and I wanted to do athletic training stuff.
So, seeing that you're at Central Columbia now, and you also did a little bit of Columbia Montour Vo-Tech, and you did some interning here at the university level.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, 3 different scenarios, 3 different school districts, and even 2 are the same. 2 are high school, but yet complete
Completely.
opposite. You know, what are some of your experiences or thoughts on how different each could be?
I think it helped me really get like a understanding of different types of athletes. Like at Vo-Tech, it was more of they were kind of just out there having fun. It wasn't really, not that it wasn't competitive, but it was more of just kids who didn't have that much experience just going out and playing. And then at Central, it's kids are more athletic and have more of a drive to want to play. So I feel like at Vo-Tech you had more of the this hurts, I don't want to practice type thing, and at Central it's more of a this hurts but I still want to keep practicing. And then at the university you would have the kids that don't want to say anything hurts because they're scared to have to be stopped from playing. So it just gave me a different perspective on everything.
So going off of your last one saying like your athlete doesn't want to stop, so how do you deal with that as an athletic trainer, and how do you approach it?
So the one football game we had a kid who obviously broke his arm. You could see like an indent in his arm, and he was trying to go back out on the field. So we just kind of had to physically, like not force him off, but like keep him away. So it's tough because they fight you back. And even at high school, we had a kid that was fighting us about what we thought was a concussion. So it's difficult, but you just need to explain to them that one game's not worth it and that they could put themselves in jeopardy.
I'll follow up on that. So you had that athlete that was kind of fighting. What's your situation if you have that parent or coach who's like, no, I think Tommy's fine, he can play, but you know that this is something that we should hold. How do you handle that situation?
You just kind of have to assert yourself and say this is how it's going to happen. I mean, you don't really know until you get x-rays or they're seen by somebody else because you don't have x-ray vision, but you can just say that I think this is what's wrong. Until we have further information, this is how it's going to have to be.
So with your athletic training, we've sort of showed that you've had different experiences. Where do you see yourself? What's your job aspirations?
I don't really have a preference on high school or college. I just want to find a spot that I feel that fits me the best, whether it's a school like Vo-Tech where you don't have that many sports, but you can really put your whole heart and soul into the sports that you do have, or a school like VU where you have a lot, but you're balancing the two. Just whichever one I feel is my best fit.
Do you have a dream job?
I mean, biggest dream would be to work with the Steelers, but we'll see.
Don't give up on your dreams. I had something and I just. Well, I mean, so again, I'll backtrack a little bit. We're talking about collegiate versus high school. One has a little bit more intensity than the other. How do you take that intensity? How do you take that pressure of I've got
Yeah.
You got the head Steeler coach saying, that guy gets paid $1.5 billion to play. I need him, you know, how do you handle that intensity?
Well, I feel like I've always worked well under pressure. My first rotation, I was with a D2 football team, so I was just kind of thrown into it. We didn't really have that much background yet. It was like the first clinical experience we had, and there was no upper level training students with us, so it was just kind of, you just learn as you go, like what to do. So I feel like that really helped me prepare for the future, where it's going to be very fast-paced environment, and you just have to make quick decisions and go from them.
So you say you work well under pressure. What are some other strengths that you have other than that?
I feel like I understand my athletes well. I was an athlete, so I can kind of tell if somebody's milking an injury out, or if there's a really tough kid who's crying on the ground in pain, you know something's really wrong, as opposed to if somebody who milks a lot of injuries, you might have to be a little more thorough to make sure that there's not something wrong there. I feel like sometimes I lack confidence with my evals, that I think I'm missing something when I might not be missing it. And I had another weakness I thought of, I can't remember it.
Not remembering, is that?
Yeah. Shoot. I can't remember.
That's okay. So one of the things I like to ask is, I think I see it more and more in new employees and way society is going, and then as being a 20-plus year vet, athletic training is chaotic. That's the basis of athletic training, is chaos. What do you do to get that, to recharge your battery and to get that life-work balance?
Well, obviously with athletic training, you have a lot of hours and not that much time outside of the office. But when you are outside of the office, I think it's important to focus on yourself and have your own personal life outside of it, and that'll help you kind of balance the stress of being in work and then being outside of work.
Sort of building off that, so we know that it's chaos. So you might be told that practice ends at 6, but now it ends at 7. Or you're at the end of the game and it goes into overtime. Or you're at the end of the game and someone gets injured and now you're dealing with that. How do you deal with that and with your life balance? Because say you were supposed to go meet someone at that time, how do you deal with those situations?
Well, it is my job, would be my job to stay there with the athletes until it's over. If it's a practice situation where it's continuously happening, you could maybe approach the coach and be like, is this what time you're ending? Because we've been going over, just so I have a basis of when to be here. If it's a game and there's an injury, you can't really help that. It's your job to stay there. You can't leave the athlete, so you just kind of have to deal with that.
Sorry about your leg.
Oh, duct tape that. You want to look at comments? You already did a great job. It is, yeah, I'll ask this question because I think, being an old dog, and I really enjoy some of you newer kids coming out, because KT taping was not something that we did, and now it's more prevalent. I mean, do you have a certain technique when you have a certain injury that you like to work on, and what do you like to do, something so you can teach these old dogs some new tricks?
I have used it a lot with the shoulder, with like an AC joint or like scapular winging. Other than that, I don't really have that much experience. We didn't get taught it in school, but I definitely want to learn some more about it. And
is there anything
get a
you
broader
think, a
opinion.
technique that maybe you've worked with hand, you've worked with, and you've seen, but you have come in with any newer ideas on how to treat an injury? Or
I've seen it used for swelling, and I've never seen it used on the knee. I've seen them use it on the ankle. So I was thinking about
Well, we can take KT, any technique, anything. Have you done anything that maybe you consider new or?
Something you've learned that you would take to someone else.
There we go, thank you. Needed somebody smarter to ask the question.
Can't think of anything real.
Or maybe something you learned at your clinical site that you brought to someone, one of your students, that you showed them.
Something that maybe you brought into class and discussed.
Can't really think of anything.
You better start teaching. Well, you better talk to
Two-thirds of the class.
Well, you know, you've had the fortunate or unfortunate to work with both Hannah, seen me a couple times when I've covered for Hannah or Roxanna. Is there any questions that you have for us? We're looking at things, you know, both Hannah and I have done collegiate, have done clinical, have done high school. You know, is there any questions that you would like to bring to us? And I say this, even though this is a mock interview, it would be nice, like if you're going to interview somewhere, to know a little back history of who's interviewing you, so that you can ask you some questions like that.
Okay.
But any questions for us?
Well, we never really got a clinical experience, like in the actual clinic, so I was just wondering how that, I mean, I went one day with Roxanna
Mhm.
and observed, but I was just wondering how, I know you're not a huge fan of the clinic,
It's not my favorite.
but.
But that's, so like, when I was in college, we had one day as our gen med rotation, which just was following around a general practitioner. We never had what we consider at Geisinger the clinic aspect. So when I came to Geisinger, I'm like, this is not what I went to school for. Like, I went to school to be out in the field doing that at the school. So it was just a big thing to get used to. But your clinical aspect, that's more of like your SOAP note writing, using your evaluation skills. But then, like, it depends on the doctor you're working with. So like, I do more home exercise programs in the clinic, and then I do a balance testing, which is working with some research stuff. But there are some athletic trainers that they go in and scribe for doctors, so they do their SOAP notes, and they're pretty much in there doing everything that the doctor needs. Sort of what's not considered a physician extender anymore, but what the old role of physician extender used to be. We do some casting, bracing. We have a couple that work in the orthotic department. So it's sort of, you can branch out anywhere within the clinic, at least within Geisinger's clinic. Each clinic, I'm sure, is a little bit different on what role they can allow you to do. But it's more, to be honest, at first it was just more getting used to the computer system and how the flow of clinic works. And then once you get in your flow, then that's when you can go specialize more into what you need, like what the doctor wants you to do.
I looked at it more as a learning experience and also a, networking. I mean, it was a perfect way to get to know a physician.
Yeah.
And to almost, you know, be able to get in touch and contact with that physician. So if I had an athlete that needed to be seen, I could bypass a lot of things and just call the physician up itself and say, hey, listen, this is what's happening. And then, you know, be able to get them seen a little bit faster. And, you know, when I first started at Geisinger, we didn't have this. And within 24 hours, you can get this athlete in. So it was more about getting to know the physician to just say, hey, listen, this is what I have. And them getting an understanding of who I was, so that they like, oh, if Matt's calling me, I think this is, you know, maybe I need to get them in. And they got them in right away. I also look at it as, you know, as I got older, being out on the field till 10 o'clock at night when I have two younger kids, and that was not what I want. It was a step to get into a more, even though it's not, but try to get more step into a regular schedule time frame of 9 to 5 maybe, and so that I could have, that was my way of balancing my work-life balance. But I also looked at it as opportunities for growth. Like she said, Geisinger is a different beast than some other clinics. I look at it as a way, you know, Geisinger has options out there for education to bet, you know, okay, I'm an athletic trainer, but maybe I want to go get kind of curved that. There's ways to get education, and Geisinger helps. So it all depends on how you look at it. If you walk in and be like, oh, I didn't go to school for this, you're gonna hate it. You have to find that positive spin, that silver lining, and I think that's an athletic trainer, because if we went in thinking, oh God, I hate this, we're gonna hate our lives for 20 years. But you have to find that positive in the negative and figure it. But like she said, she's probably better at telling you what the clinical, I run a gym, I pick things up, I put them down.
No, I do, like, going off, I do agree that it does help you build that relationship with the doctor working in the clinic, just because you're working with them every day, so now you sort of know them better. It makes it easier to approach them, because I've always had, like, even though they're a person too, but like, it's almost like they're that little edge above you because they're the doctor, they make the final decision type of thing. But it gives you that better relationship with them. And then I learned a lot more in the clinic. Just even in my eval skills, watching them do their evals, it gives you that, like, oh, well, let me like, and then you go ask them, like, how did you do that test? Because it looked so much easier than doing what we would do normally. And then that's where I learned more about, like, radiographic imaging and learning how to read an X-ray and MRIs and that type of thing. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel of it, but when I started, I had that, like, I'd be in your boat. I'd be like, we didn't do clinic. What the hell's clinic? Like, we ran clinic, but it was rehab clinic. Like, it wasn't see the doctor clinic.
But it is a good way. I look at it. Everything's a network. It's a tool in your belt, somebody you know to help you down the road. And like she said, you get to that point where you're learning some things that you're like, why did you do that? And and most of these physicians, especially in Geisinger, they're seeing the work, comp injury. They're seeing that the elderly injury. That when they hear they got a 22-year-old athlete that wants to get, they're like, well, let's get, they get excited because that's what they want to see. That that's why they're doing sports medicine. So, but it is a good networking. You get to meet PAs and understand different aspects, and maybe a different style to the same injury, a different protocol to heal the same thing.
All right, to wrap it up, got one question. In your athletic training bag, if you had to pick one thing that describes you, what is it and why?
A stem splint, because it can be flexible in order to mold it around the injury, but also firm to hold it in place. And I feel I can be flexible, but hold my ground when I need to.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to shake your hands because I've been coughing in them all the time.
Well, I've been doing this here. Fist bump then.
All right. Don't mind my outfit because apparently I gained a lot of weight since grad school.
You said that.
My clothes. Yeah.
Oh. I was about to say, boy, that's